Well, hello, good morning. I'm hoping I'm live because I've never periscoped before. Hey, look at that. C equals M squared has joined. Good to have you on board, C equals M squared. My name is Brian Anderson. I am head of live performance program developer here at Science World at the TELUS World of Science building in Vancouver, BC. Hello, Malayaf. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Good to have you on board. I wanted to thank Nicole Can for setting this up. I think this is a great program and it's a great opportunity for us all to share some of our tips and wonderful things we have discovered over the years. I will also let you know my phone is currently precariously balanced on 2 ring stands, so if I begin to slant a little bit, that's what's going on. I wanted to talk to you today about dealing with the unexpected. I think as interpreters, as informal science educators, it's something we're all aware of. In some cases we have scripts, in some cases we're working more from a bullet point outline. But as much as you practice that and as much as you drill into that, you're going to find there's going to be times when weird, exciting things happen. My challenge to you is don't see those, as they say in the computer science business, that's not a bug, that's a feature. If you see my eyes tipping downward a little bit from time to time as well, I'm going to freely admit that I have a large clipboard here because I have valuable, wonderful things to tell you, and I want to make sure I don't miss any. So yes, when you're, I think for all of us as a starting interpreter, you've rehearsed your piece, you know your presentation, you're going to go up, and that night before, you've got those anxiety dreams. What if the prop breaks? What if the animal doesn't demonstrate the behavior I'm looking for? What if my explosion in the science museum does not happen? What if I just forget everything I'm going to say? I want to, if you are any newer interpreters watching right now, put your minds at ease by telling you all of these things are going to happen. And it's not the end of the world. None of these are deadly. None of them are going to hurt or injure you. You're going to walk away feeling just fine. And in fact, if anything, going back to our bug and feature, this is going to make your presentation better. One of my big beliefs about presentations is they're living organisms. They're things we do again and again. And these little errors, these little breakdowns in code, if you want, are the mutations that allow the presentation to grow. So today I'm hoping to give you some tips on some of the more common ways things can go in different directions and things you can do to address them, some strategies. I want to put as a baseline under all of this the magical letters NSS, which for me says never sacrifice safety. Whatever environment you're working in, whatever strategy you're going to adopt for something that's kind of gone off the rails of what you expect your presentation to be, it's never an excuse to sacrifice the safety of yourself or of your audience. Particularly for us in a science museum context, we're often working with fire, we're working with projectiles, we're maybe working with strong chemicals, liquid nitrogen, that sort of thing. It's very important for us not just to be safe, but to be seen to be modeling good safety techniques. And I say that because some people have a wonderful impromptu, off-the-cuff kind of feel. I know some of my presenters here have a great kind of madcap energy, if you like, kind of, whoa, what's going on now? Let's try this. Let's see what's happening here. We work very carefully with them to rein that in, and actually I won't even say rein that in, to embrace that in a way that still keeps the safety happening. So we never want to have a case, let's see what happens if I don't wear goggles. This would be crazy. No, don't want anything like that. All right, so let's walk through some of the many ways your presentation can go in different directions than you expected. One of my favorites, and one of the more common ones for us here at Science World, is you have a demonstration that A, then B, then C will happen. But C does not happen. The explosion doesn't go off, the ball doesn't fall where you expect it to, you mix your chemicals and you don't get, whoa, wads of foam, you just get a little and nothing. Well, there's some strategies for that. Throughout, one strategy that I'm going to come back and forth to is a flip side of a coin. You can acknowledge or not acknowledge. Remember, for a lot of cases, you're the only one who knows what was supposed to happen. So in some cases, you can look, hey, Nicole Can has joined. Hi, Nicole. In some cases, if what happened is what happened, then as far as the audience knows, that is exactly what was supposed to happen. And you can embrace that with tremendous enthusiasm. If is all you get, then you can say, oh, look at that amazing that we had happen there. Hi, Nicole's bus was running late. I am enjoying this. As I was saying before, this is my first Periscope, so I'm learning wonderful things about how these messages pop up. A wonderful example of this idea of acknowledge, not acknowledge. We had a presenter here a few years ago who is more of an entertainment presenter, but working in the same kind of area where we do with our science shows sometimes. Professional bubbleologist. Did spectacular bubble shows. He actually set a world record here for the most people inside a bubble at one time. But watching his live show, and for myself, it was particularly easy to identify with because I've done a lot of bubble shows. I know sometimes you're building to an elaborate sculpture and then pop. It does not go. His whole persona, all the time on stage, was whatever happened was exactly what was supposed to happen. So he would be moving along. I could tell sometimes, oh, he was trying to build this elaborate thing, but halfway through it went pop. It would go pop, and he would go, ta-da, as though this is exactly what I wanted to have happen. The flip side of this that we'll encounter throughout, you can acknowledge or not acknowledge. If you choose not to acknowledge, there. Sometimes it just makes sense to acknowledge, to say, oh, that was not a big poof of foam that I was expecting. Now, a strategy with that, and something I work hard with our presenters here, try to train yourself out of the words, it didn't work, that didn't work, oh, it failed in some way. Anything that happens on stage is an opportunity. Anything that takes place is an opportunity for you to engage with the audience, to build some of that great informal education that as interpreters we're masters of. So rather than saying, okay, it didn't work, describe what actually happened. Okay, well, that was a very small amount of foam coming up. Oh, that eagle just flew away, where I was expecting him to come down and maybe grab some of the salmon that I held out for him. Again, not a bug, a feature. Use this as an opportunity. Engage with the audience. Ask some questions. Why do you think that might have happened? What was going on there? What was different today? Let's look at what the different variable was. In my terms, I love the idea of tremendous enthusiasm. In fact, I'm going to look on my sheet because I wrote down the right phrasing I wanted for this. Tremendous enthusiasm and the phrase delighted curiosity. I think as interpreters, we can take this and use the opportunity where something's not going as we expected, not to bring things down on the show, oh, sorry, it's not going to be what we wanted, but to ramp up the energy, to ramp up the enthusiasm. Whoa, this is cool, I do this every day, and you know, something different happened today. Something really cool and amazing. Let's see if we can figure out why did it go this way today instead of other ways. There's great opportunities there. I've had members of my audience, I've had the young scientists watching, who will point out, and sometimes it's something quite as obvious. You didn't plug it in. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't plug it in. Here, we move on from that. Sometimes they have wonderful theories, and sometimes it's a great case of, certainly in terms of science, there aren't always nice, clear closure endpoints. Sometimes it's a case of, we don't know why it happened this way today. Let's see if we can describe an experiment or design an experiment that would figure out why. I love the idea of working with animals. We don't do it a lot here. We have some insects that we'll display sometimes. Years ago, we actually had a bat display. So one of the presentation shows, we had a little enclosure where the presenter would stand. The bats would come, they would fly around, people would see. And again, working with live creatures, there may be some behaviors you're expecting, there may be some things you're hoping to describe. It's not always going to happen. A living creature will always do what a living creature wants to do. Again, not a bug, a feature. One of my favorite examples of doing that bat show, we were actually hosting a museum convention here at Science World. So it was funny to watch my executive and my development people were all quite tense. They were walking along in that little tent because very important VIPs coming. It was in reception. We're going to do a special presentation of this show. Hello, the clouds. Good to have you aboard. We're talking about bats and presenting bats for a VIP audience. And this bat would fly around, but what the bat loved to do more than anything else was cling onto the little net that separated the presenter from the audience. I don't know how many of you work with bats, but there's a particular feature of particularly the small brown bat anatomy which, when you're hanging in this position directly towards the audience in the lower torso region, there is something that is quite spectacular and hard to miss on the male versions of the creature. Could have been an awkward moment, could have been even more awkward when, in this case, the bat, I don't know if it was nerves himself, but decided that he had to relieve himself in the direction of the audience. Now, when this takes place, it could be something acknowledge, don't acknowledge. In this case, it's a great opportunity for me, I felt, to acknowledge, to pass on relative proportion of that part of the anatomy to the size of the bat. I believe in the species. They're known for having the largest genital size to body mass of any mammal. And I don't know about anything else in the show, but I promise you, everyone who was at that are going to walk away with that fact, and it's going to be reinforced in a pretty solid way for them. Let me check my list here of what we're doing there. The one that we all fear, the one that happens to me to this day, even after I'm coming up on 25 years of interpreting, the brain fart. You've prepared, you're out there, you know what you're going to do, you know what you want to say, and it all goes away. Again, two great strategies: acknowledge or don't acknowledge. The fact that you're not saying what's supposed to come next could be a case that the audience doesn't know what's supposed to come next. Just move on to something else. If there's a piece missing, maybe you can come back to it later on. Maybe your show is just a little bit shorter that day. Not acknowledging is often just as valid a strategy. A strategy I like sometimes is to acknowledge. It's a very humanizing thing. You can say, ladies and gentlemen, I have forgotten what I was going to say. Let's have a look around and let's see for a moment. I mean, obviously, if this continues for 10 or 15 minutes, it can start to get awkward. But for an immediate couple of seconds type thing, it's a humanizing event. And it's something that we're going to come back to later on, but it's something that really makes the show personal. It's something for people who are watching that says, this is not the show that everyone else sees every single day. Hello, cheers, my bra. It's something that's special that we got to see. We got to see this moment when things went a little bit different. We're talking about what happens when your brain goes away and you've forgotten what's going to come next. Some other great strategies I find for this is use your body. If your brain doesn't remember, often your body will. So the pattern or the trap that I think a lot of us can fall into is, I'm trying to think what it is, I'm going to stand very still, I'm going to do the looking up thing, and can I remember? What is it? Where is it? Force your body to move around the stage. Sometimes just moving over to the next prop, moving over to the other side of the stage, can be something that cues you that, all right, I do this and I say this. This is what happens. A great strategy that we often use here, we're very prop-based in Science World. We're using different pieces of apparatus, so I know I have to use the Van de Graaff generator, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use that. What you can do is actually lay out your stage in the order of your show. So the first item is here, second item is here, position, position, position. As you move from piece of equipment to piece of equipment, that becomes your little cheat sheet. That becomes your scrawled point form set list that you might have in the corner of the stage. But you know, okay, if I've used this equipment, I've used this equipment, I've used this, by the time you get to the end, you know, I'm done. Everything is finished. Another thing from a strictly presentational point of view, and something that can enhance your presentations generally, I encourage you, look for moments of emotion in the scene. Look for moments when you're presenting something that you change your tonality, that it's something can be as simple as we're trying to build some anticipation of, all right, let's see what happens now. Now you can see automatically that changes the physicality, it changes the voice a bit, but it also becomes a great cueing mechanism. If you're going through your show and, I can't remember what I say, what happens here? Try to get yourself in that emotional spot. Try to know the emotional beats. Okay, this one goes from excited to happy to scared to slightly disappointed. I've forgotten what happens here. Let's get into a slightly disappointed headspace. See if that cues something for you. See if that brings the words back. If all else fails, another strategy, whether you've acknowledged or not, is just take a break there. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have anything they'd like to know about this? Sometimes the questions, the topic, obviously they're most likely is going to be about what you were just talking about. That could cue you. And if nothing else, that is going to bridge a few moments of awkwardness while you're waiting for your brain to return to you. A final strategy that I have embraced from time to time is, this is going to be a slightly shorter show today, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. This has been a wonderful opportunity, and move on to your next thing. So those are some cues or some tips for brain farts. The next one, one of my personal favorites that can move a show into ways that you did not expect, change your presentation, and that is interaction with the audience, whether it's volunteers that you're bringing up on stage to assist you, whether it's a case of you're asking a question and the answer you get is not quite what you expect. Sometimes those will be prompted completely at random. You will have not asked a question at all, and someone will be excited to tell you, I have a cat at home! My gerbil once ate a hot dog! Again, these do not have to be bugs. These can be features. A training exercise that we use with our team here is to come up with lots of different topics. Sometimes we'll do that just free form. One person will suggest one to the other person. Oh my goodness, someone is telling me I have a meeting coming up. I'm going to clear that on my screen. The other thing is you can just make little flashcards like this. So we've got things like properties of mammals. We've got, look, the solar system. Imagine yourself, this is the game, the exercise, imagine yourself talking about that, perhaps asking a question. So how many planets are there in the solar system? The job of the other people playing the game with you is to give you a completely non sequitur answer, something completely unrelated to what you've said. Now you can have another set of cards for that. I might go, I'm a princess, is the answer you get. Well, the goal in this game, which is known as yes, and I'll talk a little bit more about why that's controversial in some educational circles. The goal in yes is to begin with the word yes, but not leave your audience with the belief that the number of planets in the solar system is princess. You don't ever want to leave people with inaccurate information, but you want to support the person's participation from the audience and then try and link what they've said to the right answer in a sentence or two. It is a fun little bit of mental gymnastics. I'm going to try and, let's see, solar system and princess. Yes, the planets in the solar system rotate or orbit around the sun. Now the sun is a big shiny thing in the middle. So just like a princess who may have all of these helpers coming around them, you can have a sun with planets orbiting around. And many princesses will have a handmaiden or a prime minister or different people like that. As they identify them, some of the politicians talk a lot. They put out a lot of gas. We have gas giants coming around in our planets orbiting the solar system. And most princesses, like most planets, will be 8 or 9, depending on what the scientists have agreed on the number of planets that day. That was a fairly muddied version, but again, a great little exercise, even just something before you go on stage, something to get your brain working in different directions. A trick that can help with that, it's often very difficult to go directly from properties of mammals to earwax or whatever they've given you. But if you do a little bit of a free association around each orbit, around your source and your destination, here's what you can come up with. All right, properties of mammals. You might talk about live birth. You might talk about feed their young milk. You might talk about warm-blooded. You might talk about fur in many cases. There's a few starting points. Talking about earwax. You might talk about, all right, it's in your ear. It protects you from dirt and grime. It's around the hairs that are in your ear. Okay, suddenly we've got properties of mammals. A lot of them have fur. Earwax around where there is hair in your ears. Maybe there's a link there. Maybe one of the properties of mammals is they often have fur on the outside of their bodies. And that fur can be like hair, which you find in your ears to prevent dirt from getting in. And another thing that prevents that getting in is earwax. The reason this game, yes, is controversial, I run into a lot of opposition sometimes from traditional formal educators. It's cringeworthy for them. That they have given the wrong answer and I have said yes. I have reinforced that wrong answer. In an informal environment, I feel it's much more important to present an environment where it's okay to participate. I think it's going to be much more damaging to your presentation in an informal environment. What is the answer? Princess? No. Anyone? Anyone else? Now, obviously, we're not going to leave them with the idea that princesses determine how many planets there are in the solar system. Hello, Live Well 2060. But we want to encourage this participation, show them that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to come up with something and take a stab. 90% of science, 90% of the whole science process is being wrong. You don't often learn a lot from getting it right the first time. Dr. Sandy Ikes, our science learning lead here, has a great example. I think it came from someone else originally, but I just love it. That science is not about eureka. It's about, that's weird. That shouldn't be happening. All right, and then you go back and you iterate. And how does this happen again? How does it happen again? All that being said, if the idea of yes is uncomfortable to you, a word like interesting can be another one too. You want to affirm, you want to say, oh, that's a really neat, thank you for participating. Thank you. It's really just a verbal and a tonal way of saying, thank you for your idea. Thank you for participating. You can go, interesting. Here's this other idea. Princesses, solar system, they can be linked in another way. They have similar properties. Similar properties is really a way where I like to overlap that game a lot. All right. Do I have anything else to say about child interruptions? You can, again, acknowledge or not. We have a very close row at our science presentation stage here. You get a lot of the little people sitting right down front, and they will be telling you things. I want to know this. I've seen this before. I know this. Oftentimes, the rest of your audience can't hear what's going on. So it's a perfectly valid strategy, again, acknowledge or not acknowledge. Another great tip is just deflect or defer. Say, that's really interesting. I would love to talk to you more about that. Can you come and see me after the show? So if it just feels like what's going on might be derailing your show from where you want to move to next, you can still acknowledge, you can still embrace what's going on, and give an opportunity to meet with them later on. Oh my goodness, Bisha 16724264 has joined. Here is another tip or another thing. If you work with volunteers, if you're actually bringing people up on your stage, if you're doing more direct interaction with the people in your audience, my goodness, what I would encourage you to try is this. Look at all of your people. Look at the people in the audience when you're selecting an audience member. And this is not for your first show. This is not to sacrifice safety again. But maybe it's your 30th or your 50th, and you're getting a little bored by this presentation. Try this. Pick the volunteer who every piece of information in your brain, every instinct you have says, this would be a bad choice. Bring them up on stage and see what happens. Sometimes you were right. That was a terrible idea. Sometimes it's going to energize your show. It's going to go in different directions that you didn't expect. Again, also, don't sacrifice safety. Don't hand the bowling ball to the 4-year-old, but you'd be surprised where things can go. And I think to sort of summarize things, embrace that unexpected, be willing to go places you didn't expect to go. I love the idea of, again, mutation, the idea that if the show is doing something different, that if something unique has happened this time, it makes the show better. It also makes the engagement with the audience better. They recognize it. They know this is something that hasn't happened before. Something we didn't talk about when we were talking about props and shows not working. I am famous for leaving something backstage. We've left something there. That can be another opportunity not to ramp the show down, but to ramp it up. That, okay, I've forgotten the gloves that I need for this. I could just say, I've forgotten the gloves. I'm sorry, I gotta go. Or it can be, there's one more thing we need for this demonstration. This is gonna make it even more awesome than anything you've seen before. I'm just gonna go back and get that. So use that. Use the theatricality to ramp things up. When things happen that are unusual, when a kid says something, it can be an opportunity for an anecdote that becomes part of your show later on. I was doing a show recently. We have an exhibition right now of the Felix Baumgartner's capsule from the big parachute jump from a couple of years ago. So we do something as a little stuffed monkey, and we drop him on a parachute, and if the parachute's not big enough or strong enough, the monkey will scream. It's got a little speaker built into it. So then we follow up and say, okay, the monkey screamed with a small parachute. What do you think we should change? What's the variable we should do? The second or third time I did this, little boy in the audience, you've got to reduce the weight. Cut off the monkey's legs. And I thought that was hilarious at the time. I thought from a strictly physics point of view, yes, that's quite valid. It wasn't a real monkey, so we're not actually going to damage him. But it was also such a fun thing that it's now become part of my presentation. When I'm asking that question, I will sometimes share that story of, here's an idea we got. It's a funny line. It's also a way of saying, hey, it's okay to participate. It's okay to jump in with your ideas. It's not about the right idea. It's about being willing to put something out there to try different things. Do I have any final words of wisdom? I don't think so, really. Summarize all of this. You can engage with your audience. You can provide moments when they really feel like they've seen something special by embracing these moments when something different takes place. If you have any questions, if you want to follow up, I am at ScienceGuyBry. You can also reach me at Banderson, Banderson, at scienceworld.ca. I'm hoping I pushed the right buttons at the beginning of this so that we can post it up on YouTube. And thank you again to Nicole Can for setting this up. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a lovely Tuesday. Goodbye.